So far we've gone through our primaries of blue and then to yellow and then to red. And you can see we're already getting a plethora of colors going on here. I think I'm going to go back to my blue now and to continue to darken things up and to green things up a little bit. So I've got a little bit of water, my brush over here, and a little bit of this blue right here. Now, remember what I was saying before about knowing what color you have on your brush. So important. Because this one has a sort of a cyan blue, but it had over here in this puddle just a little bit of that purple mixed in, which is going to give us more of an aquamarine. I think that it's not that important, the amount that is in there. It won't make a huge difference, but you should know, right? When we go over colors, we're going to go over that stuff and you'll see how important that is. Okay. Anyways, where did I start? Started on the roof. Why? Because it's a big dark place. So if anything was going horribly wrong, this is where I could do something about it. Okay, cool. Now a little bit more here. Now this time I'm really going to be starting to make that form a little bit more. So I'm definitely getting my water, my blue, over here to this right-hand side. And if I find that the watercolors are just sort of washing out, that they're mixing, but they're not doing what I'd like them to as far as getting some real color on them, then, you know, what I'll do is I'll just let it dry. I'll do something else. I'll do like those little fish that I'm painting or whatever, and just come back to it later. But so far, so good. You know, you can see here too where I'm taking the brush and just dappling at it, just poke, 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 because I want to give it some texture, right? And if a little bit of the paint comes off over on this side as I'm grabbing it and taking it over to the other side, that's okay. It's just helping with the texture. All right. Now, I've talked about the magic white line before. That's what happens when kids, they make something, right? And they don't want to, you know, get it messed up, right? So they just get close, but not quite to where it's at. And so, well, it creates a magic white line around everything. And it's, like I said, it's kind of cool in a way. It's kind of cute, actually. But you can see I avoid that by just not worrying about it. Just don't worry about it too much. You can get right up next to something. Boom, 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 boom. You see right up next to it. And it's okay. It's okay. And you know what? Even if you went over and into something, that would be okay too. Okay, so that's enough on that tree. I'm gonna leave that one go actually now and not work on that tree again until it gets nice and dry because then I can put in sort of like the final little strong details, right? Okay, let's take a look at this side over here of our cabin. And so I would say let's take a little bit of this blue still. And the place where the strongest shadow would be right underneath this eave, right? Right underneath where the gutter is. So let's try our paint right there first. Okay, I like that. See, because it's really made a much stronger difference between these two sides. This is much lighter, this is much darker. And once again, I think what I'll do is I'll just hold off on doing much more here until it's dry. And then I can put in like little shadows here and there, you know, and really make it nice. But we can get a little bit of shadow into here, especially like underneath the eave here. And at this point, I'm not worried about this little bit of trim. If it gets a little bit of paint on it, that's going to be okay. Because we've protected it enough that it's a different color than this here. And speaking of color, I might have to just make the trim a different color because I did get the blue into it And, that might fly if it was a sunset, but it's not really going to fly for a blue sky. It's not going to look right. It's just going to look like the sky got into it. So, yeah, trim's probably going to get a darker color, at least on the roof. Maybe other parts of the house, no, maybe I'll leave them white because they seem to be working fine. Okay, so that was a gimme of a shadow. And you see how I had that blue color, nice little shadow color, and by just drawing it there, heck, I got an instant shadow. Isn't that nice? It looks like I actually knew what I was doing or something. Kind of had to work on it. Where else? Where else? Well, if I put a little bit, just a little bit to the side of this window here, that was a little bit much, I think, but okay. Then that'll give some of the three-dimensionality. Although, yeah, I think that is a bit much. Can I take any of that out? Not sure. Let's see. So I'm going to clean off my brush, get it all nice and dry. Could I take some of that out? Well, I could lighten it. And it's doing some interesting things. We'll see. It's all right. I don't know if I love it, but it's all right. And so, well, yeah, if I made the mistake once, might as well just make that same mistake again, right? I'll just put it over here next to the door. What it is I'm pushing too hard on the brush, and so it's getting all fat. All right, and so right next to the door there, and by this window. So if it was a mistake, at least it's a consistent mistake. We'll get a little bit under there. I think that's going to be all right. Let's see. And I could throw some shadows in under here, but I think I'll wait on that one until I'm doing like all the really super details because my mind will be really into details and everything will be into dry. So, how am I going to treat the windows? Well, these ones up front, I think I can just get with a little bit of blue. Okay. Get a little bit of the purple into that blue. Keep it consistent. Just a little bit. Tiny, tiny. And we'll just get a little bit of blue right up there and right here. And be a little bit more careful this time. Here, maybe I can get that dry brush. Can I get that? Nope. Oh well. Yeah, definitely have to change that trim color. Okay. And so there, and a little bit up here. That same effect. Maybe even back here, we can get away with that same kind of thing. In fact, I think with here, I've got my brush is pretty dry. So just a little bit of water, no more blue, and I'm going to stretch that out on this, and maybe even here a little bit. There, that way that line is not so strong. And I think what I'll probably be doing is adding a little bit of green in there as well. So it just feels like it's kind of reflecting what's going on. So, okay, yeah, I'll do that right away. So I've got a clean brush. I want to keep it clean, right? And so then I can go into that yellow. So important that you've got it clean. Right? We'll go into one of these guys back here. Just try that yellow out somewhere. See how strong that is. It's all right. And you can see it's giving me a sense that it is reflecting what's around it a little bit. Soften this one up a little bit up here. And we're going to need a little bit stronger yellow maybe. Do like a little mini painting in here. So if we've got a little bit more yellow and a little bit more of that blue again to make it nice and green. See, I'm getting a little bit of that extra paint off of my brush. Using it up. Okay. That way I can come in. Have it be a little bit of that. Just using the brush to make sort of the indication of a texture that's kind of like trees, right? Kind of like the little pine trees going up. And a little bit of the red because it doesn't have that green. It has a much khackier green. A little bit of red. Notice I always start here in the back. It's a lot safer. There, you see how that red is mellowing things out actually, making things a lot more natural looking. And those reflections, those oftentimes are just, they're kind of like little mini paintings. Little paintings, because that's what a reflection is, really. There it is. There's something right in there. Cool, good enough. And give it a glass-like effect. Can I give it just a little shoop? See how I just took a little bit of the paint out of there? There it is. Just while that's all nice and wet still, I just cleaned off my brush, took and just squeezed out the water. And that's going to erase some of it. Don't want to do it too much. Get really fake if you repeat an effect too much. But I think that was just enough to give it more of a sense of being glass. Cool. All right. Now I think we could work in these hills a little bit. Let's get them a little bit green again. So a little bit of this blue. Darkest area first, right? Just to make sure everything was working okay. Okay. Once again, just like with the windows, I'll just change the angle of my brush here and give it a little tap, 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 tap along that long edge of the brush, and that's going to give me a texture that gives me something of the impression of trees, like a whole bunch of little pine trees. One of those reasons why painting is just another level than drawing with just a pencil, because a pencil just doesn't give you these options quite as automatically and quite as easily as paint, as working with a brush. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again, that if it feels awkward having a brush, right, just think of it as if you had some markers, just them good old washable Crayola markers in your hand. Or maybe you are more of an artist and you're into, I don't know, some Prismacolor pens, that kind of thing. It's just like that, except even cooler, right? Even better. There it is. We'll have to come back. This is an area that's getting a little bit washed out, so we'll come back to that. Let it dry. We'll give it a little bit more. Okay, cool. Good enough. Alrighty, so now how about this concrete area? Well, we'll start with blue here and we'll see what happens. Right? So I'm thinking of, the gray that is in concrete. And so the color that reminds me the most is blue, right? Here we've already got some red to sort of start our shadows off and start building up the paint color. And once again, like I was saying, I can use some of the areas as a reservoir. So if I've got paint here, I can just dip out of here instead of coming back to this area here. All right, so that's our darkest areas. And then, just a little, just giving it a little bit of texture. Bum, 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 bum. I'm not thinking about it at all. I'm just kind of thinking like a rock. What is a rock like? Thinking about how it's going to be darkest in the crevices here. And I know that my brush is pretty dry. Remember what I was saying just a little bit ago about how you got to know what color it is. You also have to know how much paint there is on it. And I know that it's pretty dry right now, which allows me to do different things, right? I can do different things with a dry brush than I can with a wet one. All right, cool. What color? You know what? For that house, so for this house, I think as far as the trim goes, because it's not clean enough to just leave it white, I don't think. So I'd say either a darker brown or a green would look good for that. And I'm thinking green, I am from Oregon after all. I like green. Alrighty. So let's clean off this brush a little bit. My area here's gotten a little bit dirty, so, well, don't be lazy, Mr. Coon. Just go ahead and clean it up. So, cool. All right, got that, and got this, and so I think I'll go ahead and start with my yellow. I've cleaned up my brush a little bit, and start building up the green color that I want for that. By the way, you see how I'm jumping around? I'm letting this dry a little bit, letting other areas dry, so I'm working on a different area. And, I already mentioned that I might get two paintings going at once. That's one way of being efficient. But another way is maybe just working at different parts of the painting at different times. Now, if it is all possible, the white right in and around the windows themselves, I would like to keep that white, if that is at all possible. Because once again, observing windows, well, a lot of them are white. Right there, they've got those vinyl windows, and they are white. So let's try and keep ours white. May not work, but we'll try. Now, speaking of working in while it's wet or not, see, I know that this sky is really nice and dry. So that gives me the confidence to be able to go ahead with this yellow right up against it because I know it's not going to bleed over. If this wasn't dry, I might end up with a green sky. I don't want that. We'll just make these gutters the same as well. Here and there. Okay, so you notice how I'm being able to take this brush here and get it into these really nice tight spots. So once again, I'd mentioned that is a unique property of this brush, but it's also because this brush is pretty new. And it wouldn't have to be new to be able to do this, but it would have to be well taken care of. So when you're in the class, you got to take care of the brushes. You got to clean them right away. You got to be gentle with them. Don't leave them just soaking in water, for instance. And here, watch this. This is so important. So when you're cleaning a brush, let's say at the end of the day, what you got to do is first off, clean it over at the sink. Don't just dip it in your old dirty water that you've been using for a couple of days now. But you also have to take and you have to squeeze that water out of it. Here, watch like this. Don't want to get it on my painting. Here, like that. Right? You got to reshape that brush into a nice, sharp point like that. See how that is? So you got to squeeze it out, just like so. Okay. And that's what's going to keep that brush nice, and it's going to make the brush perform for you. I mean, you got to love your brushes. If you're an artist, you got to love your brushes, and you got to treat them well. Okay, so we've got that yellow. Cool. So now I can come in with my blue again, and let's see what happens. You see, now I like the yellow. Let's make it green. Let's see. So where's a safe place? Somewhere that's not going to get messed up. Oh, way back here. Let's see, ooh, you see it's got a lot of blue on there. But I think as I continue to use it, it will be less and less and less. And it's going to be okay. So after using the paint over here, I have not loaded up my brush again. But I know how much is on there. I know that it's less. It's a little bit more controllable now. So now that I know that it's more controllable, now's when I can go over to my area that's going to be a little bit more front and center, the area that people are really going to see more, and also the area that I did want to have be a lighter color because of the way that the light is, right? And I know that it's going to be a lot more controllable. Cool. So, and it takes a lot of discipline. You always want to do like the part that's most out there first. I understand. It's hard not to do what you see and what you pay attention to. That's what you want to do first. But as an artist, you're going to have to restrain yourself a little bit. And don't do that. Go to the safest part first. And then when you're ready, that's when you go to the showy part, the interesting part, the part that's right up front. Because in the end, just like you, that's what your audience is going to be looking at. So you want it to be good. Okay. Continuing to use that brush. Once again, I have not reloaded this brush since that initial dip, and it's getting kind of easier and easier in a way to work with. One more predictable. And that was really important because now, hey, this is the window that's right up front, so I want it to be nice and easy to use for this one. In fact, if anything, it's getting a little bit too dry. So where can I get the paint from? Well, I could get it over here, but a better place would be to use it over here. Okay, so there we go. Looking all right, at least. Looking very Oregon, as a matter of fact. Very Oregon now for sure. Okay.